I'm going to call the Daviess County Fiscal Court meeting to order, the September 15th, 2022 Daviess County meeting. Commissioner Koger, would you lead us in a prayer and a pledge?
Yes, sir. You bow your heads, please. Lord, we praise and thank you for all your blessings. Please continue to guide the members of this body in your willful direction. Lord, remind us that it is you we truly serve when serving the citizens of this community. We praise you for your entrusting us to lead our county. Pray for our firemen, policemen, military, and first responders to always be safe. All this we pray through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Koger. Once again, I want to welcome everyone to our September 15th, 2022 Daviess County Fiscal Court meeting. Have a lot of folks out in the audience. We have an appeal on a rezoning to hear at the end of this agenda. So folks, I'm sorry you're going to have to sit through a whole lot of stuff. If you would, if you have a cell phone, turn it off. Put it on silent, put it on vibrate so we don't interrupt and bother your neighbors. Jenny, are you ready?
Item 1, consideration for presentation. A, proclaim September 17 through 23, 2022 as Constitution Week and October 4, 2022 as 10-4 Awareness Day. Commissioner
Koger, would you read the proclamation for Constitution Week?
Yes, sir. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies and principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitution Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to the magnificent document and its memorial anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of the proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitutional Week, and now, therefore, in Daviess County, Kentucky, I, Daviess County Judge Executive Al Mangley, do hereby proclaim September 17th to the 23rd, 2022 as Constitution Week. As the citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to all through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Presented this Daviess County, Kentucky, the 15th day of September 2022. Judge Al Mangley.
Thank you, Commissioner Mary Coombs. Would you come forward, Commissioners? Let's go out and get a picture. And then I think Ms. Coombs has a few words that she would like to say.
We'll come out there.
You do it. You read it. I'm going to get here, Rose in the middle of my thorns. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I saw you waving up here, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to get you to get a little closer to that.
It's on.
Okay. My name is Mary Coombs, and I'm the chapter regent of the General Evan Shelby chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. If you will allow me, I would like to tell you a bit about us. Our chapter began 125 years ago, October of 1897 here in Owensboro. Just 7 years after the National Society was chartered, and we will be celebrating our 125th anniversary on October 22nd at First Presbyterian Church. The Daughters of the American Revolution is a nonprofit, non-political volunteer women's service organization dedicated to promoting historic preservation, education, and patriotism. It was founded on October the 11th, and its mission is to promote historic preservation, education, and patriotism. The motto is God, home, and country. Our membership nationally is 190,000 members with 3,000 chapters in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. Our chapter funds are used to help veterans, award scholarships, mark graves of war patriots, and donate to one of our DAR-supported schools here in Kentucky, the Hindman Settlement School. We recently took a pickup load of supplies to a drop-off point in Lexington to be taken to Hindman. Each year in October, we have a Day of Service project where we encourage our members to serve the community in some way. Last year, we held a book drive and donated over 400 books to the International Center to help Afghan refugees. The year before, we held a canned food drive to help families in need through a local church pantry. This year, we will be collecting donations to help Hindman Settlement School replenish their school supplies after the devastating floods. Members are encouraged to log their volunteer service hours on the National DAR website in an online tally. Patriotism is also important to our mission. That is why we celebrate Constitution Week, as we are doing now, by having the Proclamation signed. At each chapter meeting, we say the Pledge of Allegiance and the American's Creed. We also have an annual Flag Day picnic to celebrate our nation's flag. Historic preservation is another mission. The Kentucky Room at the Daviess County Public Library was actually started as a repository of genealogical records from the General Evans Shelby chapter. Preserving historical and genealogical records is extremely important to our members. Our chapter was also instrumental in preserving the Jones Cabin at Yellow Creek Pioneer Village. We also sponsored a DAR grant for the Whitesville Historical Society to help with their restoration of the Stennett House in Whitesville. So that is just a snapshot of what we do as an organization. We accept any woman who is able to prove that she is a direct descendant of a Revolutionary War patriot, and we have volunteer genealogists who love to help ladies help find a patriot and trace their lineage. Just one more thing, and I'm finished. We have a meeting room on the third floor of the Owensboro Museum of Science and History with a beautiful mural painted by Rex Robinson. Rex has an aunt and two first cousins in our chapter, so I think we got a great deal on that mural. It's becoming increasingly difficult for some of our older members to make it to the third floor of the museum. But at our last meeting, we had 35 in attendance. Some of our members are 90 years old and older, and they have been in our chapter for over 70 years, some of them. Ideally, we would like to have a permanent meeting place to share with the Sons of the American Revolution and the Daviess County Historical Society that is more accessible. Whitesville Historical Society has allowed us to use their meeting places space at times, but it's a pretty long drive for many of our members. We think that Daviess County should have a permanent meeting place for our Historical Society, the Sons of the American Revolution, and the Daughters of the American Revolution. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes on your agenda.
Thank you very much. I may send my sister to you. She's found a stumbling block in her application. Yeah, so, but she's somewhere in Virginia, so, you know, maybe that we claim that she was adopted instead of being a real member of the family. So.
Well, we know a lot of ladies who just love to scavenge around.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wathen, do you want to read the 10-4 Awareness Day proclamation?
Yes. Whereas children under 4 are at a higher risk of serious physical injury or death as a result of child abuse. And whereas Kentucky has doubled the national rate of substantiated child victims of abuse under age 1. And whereas research from pediatricians has led to a rule called the 10-4 bruising rule that says that any bruising before a child is cruising at approximately 4 months of age, and any bruising on the torso,
ears, and neck are significant red flags for child abuse. And whereas Kentucky requires the training of certain professionals such as nurses, doctors, social workers, and first responders on this rule within the pediatric abusive head trauma training, it is imperative to have as many adults as possible ready to identify these concerning bruises. And whereas the kosher charity Face It movement, a campaign to end child abuse, aims to bring awareness to the 10-4 bruising rule with a traditional and social media campaign and educational events on the day surrounding the 10-4 on the date 10-4. And whereas the University of Louisville and the University of Kentucky forensic pediatricians and their teams are providing free training the week of October 4th, 2022, so people can learn about the bruising rule to identify abuse early, as well as preventative tips, and therefore, Al Mattingly does hereby proclaim October 4th, 2022 as 10-4 Awareness Day, and urges all citizens to do their part in recognizing and preventing child abuse.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't believe we have anyone here to accept that. So Jenny, I assume you'll mail it to the appropriate people. All right, Jenny, you ready to start again? Mr. Hendricks.
Total cash at August 31st is $68,824,704. Of that, there's $20,609,118 in the general fund, $5.3 million in the bond fund, $16 million in the solid waste funds, of which half of that is restricted to the closure and the post-closure funds, and there's $15.7 remaining in the ARPA fund that has already been allocated but not spent. There's nothing else to apprise the court of. Everything is functioning within the expected ranges.
Commissioners, questions or comments for the treasurer? For the public, a copy of this report is on file with the court clerk here in our offices. Next item, Jenny.
Consideration for approval, A, minutes of the September 1st, 2022 Daviess County Fiscal Court meeting.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion second. Commissioners, you all had a copy of the minutes in your possession for some time. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
B, all claims for all departments.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and second. Again, Commissioners, you've all had a copy of the claim or the bills due and payable by Daviess County Fiscal Court in your possession for some time. Any questions of the treasurer? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
C, Daviess County Sheriff's 2021 tax settlements and Quietus.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion second. Mr. Hendricks, you want to explain this to everybody?
Certainly, I have reviewed the tax settlement and Quietus. When you first look at it, it appears a little bit odd because I would be looking for a total of real property of about $8.4 million. It shows 5.6. But the reason for that is when Sheriff Kane left, it required a closure at that point of his term. So there's already been a Quietus for that point, which split the tax year. So we're not really reflecting the full tax collection in this Quietus. I have reviewed it, compared it to our records. I find nothing out of line, appears to be in order, and I've been made aware of no issues from any of the taxing districts. I recommend approval.
Commissioners, any question or comment? And while the sheriff is an elected office in and of itself, or himself or herself, they still have to report all this information to fiscal court. Hearing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
D, Daviess County Detention Center's Policies and Procedures Manual, annual update.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Jailer, are you here to tell us what this is about? Come on. Pick it up and get it in there. You're too high in the air for that sound to be proper. I think he.
It was on till he turned it
Till he
off.
turned it off. Do it again on the bottom.
All right, thank you. The judge, commissioners, members of the fiscal court, our administrative regulations require us with our policy procedure manual that it be reviewed, updated, and that any changes be approved by the governing authority, which is you all, at least annually. So we're here to present our policy procedures manuals. This year, very minimal changes. One of the biggest changes was actually we had two policy procedure manuals that were merged into one to be streamlined. That doesn't mean any of it was cut out, but they were combined together to make one policy manual. It was originally our operations procedure manual, and it was combined now with our operations policy manual.
Jailer, let me just stop you for a second. All the commissioners have had a copy. I've had a copy. Anybody have any questions of the jailer and why these changes took place? Sit down.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Jailer, thank you, and take our thanks to your staff. It's a tough job that you do. You don't have to stay. Oh, you want to stay? All right. Next item, Jenny.
E, Resolution 18, 2022, and Kentucky Public Employees Deferred Compensation Plans Joinder Agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Hendricks, do you want to, nobody gets behind us. I think that's why we've got that spot back there for the press. Thank you. Do you want to lead us through this and tell us why we're doing it?
Certainly. Again, this agreement is called a Joinder agreement. The Kentucky Deferred Comp Authority is the administrator for the employee 401K plan and the 457 plan. The IRS rules require that there is a current agreement between us on file. It allows the exchange of information and storage of information. I've reviewed it. It's in order with the last one, a few minor changes, so I would recommend approval.
Commissioners, questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
F, MOA and Deed with the City of Owensboro regarding a transfer of a portion of property located in Pottersfield Cemetery.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Gentlemen, this is hopefully the end of a long process. The city has transferred us a 6x6 plot in their Potter's Field. It's our intent to relocate the statue that's set atop the pedestal here on 3rd Street for folks to be able to view. And I want to say thank you to the City of Owensboro for finally transferring it. I don't mean to use the word finally, but for transferring it. That will happen at some point. The road department, I think, is in the process of getting it done. Claude, I'm assuming you have read it, reviewed it, and you're okay with it?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Questions or
To
comments?
both of those.
I keep hearing some kind of a feedback. But you have read it and you're okay with it, Claude? Yeah.
Red zone.
You read it and you're okay? Just shake your head.
Yes.
Okay, good. Any questions or comments, commissioners? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
G, Western Kentucky Minerals Incorporated Security Bond Release for Free Silver Road.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. County Engineer Brasher.
Yes, Judge. This is the final step in an agreement that we signed with Western Kentucky Minerals in 2012. The engineering department has reviewed the reconstruction of Free Silver Road that was due to mining operations over the last 10 years. I recommend approval of the release of this final surety.
Question or comment, commissioners? I think they've just paved it, Mark, or they're in the process?
We just did.
I'm sorry?
We just paved it. in our routine
Just paved it?
maintenance.
And what was the lesson that we learned about allowing mining through a county road? We'll never do it again.
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
223-21, pavement sealing and striping. RFQ 2223-22, one new 72-inch zero-turn mower. RFQ 2223-23, 6 sets of turnout gear.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Jordan, you want to go through the same process we usually do? If you will address each of those items, pause for a second, and we will ask for comment.
Certainly, Judge. Beginning with bid 2223-21, this is the rebid of bid number 222314 that was rejected in the last court meeting. This bid includes only the seal coating and crack sealing of all asphalt driveways and parking lots, and the striping of all parking lots at the Daviess County Operations Center and Animal Shelter. As discussed in the prior meeting, the road department will be performing the base repairs that were included in the prior bid. We received 2 bids ranging from $17,420.21 to $23,477, and recommend award to the lowest and best evaluated bid submitted by Superior Asphalt in the amount of $17,420.21. This is a budgeted project. There were no exceptions. I would recommend approval.
Mark, we're going to start that, is it this week or next week at the Operations Center?
We started last Saturday. We did our part of it. This
Okay.
coming up Saturday, the contractor will come in and resurface.
This, what was the original bid when we were contracting the whole thing out?
$81,000.
81,000, so we're going to get the same job done. We used our guys to correct all the potholes and the underlayment, and we're going to get everything done for 17,000. So we saved, what, 54,000 bucks? That's not too bad. No, say 64,000.
Plus.
Yeah, come on, CPA, you're supposed to know that. Any other questions or comments? Next item, Jordan.
RFQ 2223-22, this quote is for the provision of one new 72-inch zero-turn mower for the Daviess County Parks and Recreation Department. Last week, a 2008 Skag Wildcat mower for Panther Creek went down, with mechanics estimating $3,000 to repair the unit and a replacement motor on a 6 to 9 month delivery estimate. Public Works Management recommended purchasing an additional unit ahead of schedule in light of the other's failure in order to finish out the season. We are utilizing the same quotes used to purchase the unit from the August 16th, 2022 meeting. Since all vendors confirmed pricing and availability were the same, the quotes range from $13,239 to $14,066. We recommend pursuing the lowest and best evaluated quote submitted by Hagen's Outdoor Equipment for the new Skag Cheetah unit in the amount of $13,239. You'll note, although the 2 lower quotes are the same price, the Parks Department recommends Hagen's due to satisfactory historical service and parts availability. There were no exceptions, and I would recommend approval.
Commissioners, if you recall, I think we had 3 mowers that we were considering buying. We decided to buy one, try to make it through with the other 2, and wouldn't you know it, 3 or 4 weeks later, one of those mowers go down, or another mower went down. That we have 2 that are trying to be repaired now. So would you take it a little easier on the mowers? Next item.
RFQ 2223-23, this quote is for the provision of 6 sets of turnout gear for the Daviess County Fire Department. We received 3 quotes ranging from $18,971.04 to $26,538, and recommend pursuing the lowest and best evaluated quotes submitted by Atlantic Emergency Solutions in the amount of $18,971.04. These are budgeted replacements to meet national standards. There were no exceptions, and I would recommend approval.
Have we done business with this particular vendor before? Or do you
No,
recall?
but Chief Smith is very aware of who they are.
Okay, so that's his recommendation then? Okay. Questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if I may go back to the zero-turn mower.
Okay.
If one of those others fail that we're fixing, how long can we use this bid to purchase a second one, or can we? Do we have to rebid it, or?
This one
Typically,
is
it's-
the purchase of a second one. We purchased one under this contract, or under this quote. Now, 4 weeks later, they honored the quote, so we're
Okay.
buying a second one. The 2 that are being repaired are, parts are no longer available. The manufacturer went bankrupt. They're trying to get parts in. We're trying to get them repaired. If they're not repaired quite likely the next fiscal court will have to buy a third mower.
Will we rebid it at that time, or how long can we keep using this?
Claude?
Per Claude and I,
Yeah.
you could do it for 30, 60 days easily, but Claude said you may be able to do it for as long as they're willing to honor the price. So up to, what, 6 months maybe?
Perhaps, yes.
One of
We're
our-
willing to honor it for that long.
Yeah, one of the issues that you're gonna have is twofold. We will stop mowing here pretty soon.
Right.
So we won't need another mower. By the time you get into the next mowing season, we will have been in a budget situation. And I don't know if anything is staying the same price for very long. So they just happen to have a second one in stock, and that's why they honored.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions on the last bid? Commissioners, you heard the recommendations of staff on bid number 2223-21 on RFQ 2223-22, RFQ 2223-23. If there are no other questions or comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I hire Travis Ricker as landfill manager effective September 29, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion, second. David, do you want to kind of tell us how this happened or what came about?
Yes. As you all may be aware, Robbie Hawker, who is our current solid waste manager, is nearing retirement. So I think his plan is to retire at the end of June of next year. Obviously, the solid waste department of the landfill is a pretty important position, and we wanted to make sure we had someone on staff to learn the different operations. It's especially useful this year since we will be finishing up a construction project. So we have hired, we put it out across the nation as well as regionally. We interviewed 3 candidates, and it was unanimous for Mr. Richter. He comes from us, from Madisonville and Waste Connections landfill there.
Commissioner, you served on that committee. Did you get to interview?
Yes, I did. And he, if I remember correctly, he has 10 years' experience, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
10, 11 years. He's, appears to be very knowledgeable, so I think he'll make a good manager.
Well, we'll certainly have time to shower Robbie with kudos regarding his, but I think Robbie was hired. Did Robbie manage the landfill from day one or was
No.
there? Okay, but he was there. He's done a lot of, we're going to miss Robbie's construction
We will miss.
experience.
But he came a couple of years after it opened, and I think he was here a year or so before he was promoted.
Okay. All righty, commissioners, any questions, comment? I think we were fortunate to find such a qualified person. If there are no other question or comment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Jenny.
J, promote Jared Mattingly to transfer station floor supervisor effective September 19, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion second. It's always nice when you can promote one of your own folks to a supervisory position. Just for the record, Jared Mattingly is not any kin to me that I know of, unless we go back years ago like the Daughters of the American Revolution do, so he may be. But anyway, I want to congratulate Jared on his promotion. Any other question or comment? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
3, consideration for discussion, A, other business to be brought before the Daviess County Fiscal Court. I'm not aware of any.
I don't have any.
B, public comments.
This is time during our meeting in which we would invite the public to come forward. You're welcome to speak on anything other than what was on the agenda. That includes the hearing that we're going to have here in a little bit. Any takers? Anybody have any comment or question? Doggone it, Jenny, got a room full of people and nobody has anything to say. Next item.
C, comments by Daviess Fiscal Court.
Commissioner Caslen.
Pass.
Commissioner Koger.
Pass.
Commissioner Wathen.
Just briefly, I want to mention on Saturday, October 1st, from 8 a.m. till noon. We're having at the Operation Center, we're having the Free Tox Away Day. That's when you can bring like paint thinners and turpentine, and I'm not going to read all the things, batteries, and you can bring those from 8 a.m. till noon on October 1st to the Daviess County Operations Center.
No gasoline.
No,
No
nothing
live
nothing that'll blow up.
Yeah, no live ammo unless it's 12 gauge shotgun shells, and you can bring those, but just bring them to
No,
the
no
house.
appliances.
Yeah, no appliances. You have one other thing, Commissioner, under that pile of paper. Look up in front of you.
What's that? Oh, am I supposed to say something about that?
Yes.
The Lambert Pioneer Christmas on, what are you talking, what is this? From,
December 3rd.
here, why don't you announce it?
On the 3rd of December, 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. at Yellow Creek Park, the Jim Lambert Pioneer Village. We're going to have the Pioneer Christmas. Everybody's invited to join at all-day event. It's a free event. Invite you to celebrate the most beautiful time of the year with us in this truly unique Pioneer setting. Come and enjoy Mr. and Mrs. Claus, who will be there from 8 to 10 a.m. with good music, excellent food, and a Christmas Pioneer ambience and make this Christmas season unforgettable. True Pioneer Christmas, free parking. Event opens at 8 a.m. and lasts till 6:30, so we hope we have a big crowd. We'll have more information about lights at Panther Creek Park here lately.
So are you requesting snow for that, or are you requesting?
I'm always asking for snow.
A pleasant afternoon?
Always asking for snow, always. That finishes the major portion of our meeting. What I'm going to ask is that we recess for about 5 minutes, take a break, then we'll come back and we will start the appeals process. I'm not going to close the meeting because the appeals process occurs during the meeting. But do I need a motion to recess, or I can call recess? Yeah.
You can call a recess. Yes.
We're going to recess for about 5 minutes, folks. Gives you a chance to go to the potty right down the hallway this way. There's a drinking fountain down the hallway, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, we're going to come out of recess, back into session, and before we get started, Jordan, I was remiss by not asking you to give an update on broadband and where that is in the county.
Certainly, Judge.
And would you speak up?
Yes.
Thank you.
Connection has provided us with a narrative update in light of recent events, including what they have accomplished to date. You'll recall that Connection was involved with Kenergy in a petition to the PSC regarding the use of Kenergy's infrastructure for the provision of broadband throughout Kenergy's service territory. They had expected this ruling to be finalized much earlier in the year, January, February. However, the PSC issued its ruling on the petition on July 1st of 2022, finding that, in fact, Kenergy is permitted by statute to build a broadband network. This event delayed starting the project by 2 to 3 months. During that time and to date, however, Connection and Kenergy have conducted and now awarded RFPs for the make-ready engineering, the make-ready construction, mainline fiber construction, and materials for the project. The fiber network has been fully designed for Daviess County, and Connection has selected a provider for dedicated internet access for the first phase, agreements for which have been signed and finalized. Connection has said that since the project has been delayed multiple times by regulatory uncertainty, they have made the decision to double the pace of construction now that they effectively have the green light to do so. They plan to make up for lost time by bringing in additional crews for the installation. Their aim is still to connect some customers by the end of this year, but if they miss that target, it'll be by a matter of weeks, not months. The project is to be completed by October of 2023, and I have been apprised of nothing to indicate that goal will not be met.
For those folks in the audience that are not aware, if you live very far out in the county, you don't have broadband. You may have it in wireless mode, you may have it from some retail providers, but we've been missing and lacking broadband in our community for a lot of years. Back last year, we were awarded almost $20 million in ARPA funds, American Rescue something Act. And part of the use of those funds could be on providing broadband throughout the county. The commissioners believed so much in that program that we committed $10 million of the $20 million and did an RFP, or RFQ, and we awarded a contract to Connection. I won't go into, because my staff would throw things at me if I gave you my opinion on why we're at today, but that's right. You want me to hush, right? I thought. But anyway, the good news is that hopefully they will start connecting people by the end of the year, first of next year. My question, Jordan, and if you don't know, let me know, but you said that they were going to double up trying to make up for lost time. Do they still anticipate 18 to 24 months as a completion date? So hopefully within the next 18 to 24 months, anyone in Daviess County that wants broadband fiber will be able to have it. And Kenergy, your electric provider, will be the ones that will be operating that system, correct? Okay. Jordan, you are dismissed. Okay, I think I know we're now going to do what all of you guys came for. Again, I'm going to ask that you turn off your cell phones so that we don't interrupt anybody. I'm going to ask that you be very respectful of your neighbors, whether you agree with what's said up here or not, or what's done up here or not. Doesn't mean that this court will accept outburst. There's a sign in, thank you. The way that the ground rules for this hearing, and I'll go to you, Claude, here in a minute to either shake your head yes or speak into that microphone. We have a couple of ways that we can do this. The first way would be to throw everything out that's happened in the past and hold a whole new hearing. Never done that, not going to do that. Second thing we could do is just wait 90 days and the decision of the Planning Commission, the Board of Commissioners, would become final. Well, that's not fair to you folks who filed an appeal. So what we have chosen is the third way, and this is the way that we have always done appeals. And that we will, and Claude, tell me when I need to do that, we will read into the minutes of this meeting the record that occurred at the hearing on August 11th, 2022.
We're not going to actually read all that in.
Well, we're not going to read it all in. We're just going to enter it in.
Right.
Right. All you guys were there, well, some of you were there, so you know what it was. And if anybody doesn't have that transcript or hasn't had an opportunity to watch the video, let us know and we'll try to get you a transcript of it. Be happy to do that. But once we enter the record of that meeting, then we will make our decision wholly based on that record. Wholly based on that record. What we will do tonight, and again, what was discussed at that meeting, those folks who were at the meeting and spoke, would you stand, please? If you were at the meeting and you spoke, these three folks we will question. We will ask you to come up to the podium if we have any questions. We will ask you any questions to clarify something that we saw in the video. All of us have had the video. All of us have visited the neighborhood. So we will, you're available for us to clarify anything that we might not understand. Can't take any other testimony. So if you've got something else that you found out after that meeting and want to enter it, can't do it. We have the record, we have the fact. Is that correct, Claude?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay. You go ahead and sit down. Thank you. Hold on just a second. I will come up. Okay. Who are you?
Daviess.
Okay.
Owensboro Metropolitan Planning Commission planning Daviess County.
Okay.
We're not a metro yet that I know of.
No, it is a joint planning commission for both City of Owensboro, City of Whitesville, and Daviess County Fiscal Court.
And another question is, we kind of got destroyed at that one because we was unprepared. We didn't know how to come to it.
Okay, well,
So
just
I don't
have a
think
seat.
that's quite fair.
Have a seat, and we will talk something about that. Actually, we will start with OMPC's director. Brian Howard is here. He's representing the Owensboro Metropolitan Planning Commission and the planning staff. We will call him up, and actually, hopefully, some of your questions he will answer. If we forget to do that, try your best to include it. Once that's finished, if we have any questions for the applicant, Mr. Kamoff is representing Mr. Boswell, and I don't know either Mr. Boswell or Mr. Kamoff can come up and answer our questions. Once we have gone through that process, once the commissioners are satisfied that they understand this issue, that they understand the facts that were presented at that planning commission meeting, then we will base our decision on those facts. And we always, and Claude will read into the record the ordinances, we always write ordinances in the affirmative. So when you hear him say that Daviess County Fiscal Court affirms or approves or however it's listed, that's just the way we have to do it. Now, we very well could vote it down, but I've always written in the affirmative, and I think KRS 100 pretty much gives you the path on one of those things.
With an appeal or any, we have to start with where the decision made by the body,
Right.
the administrative body that got it to us, so.
Okay. But anyway, when we get done with the questioning and trying to make sure that we understand all the facts, then we will take that info, we will adjourn, we'll take that info and mull it around. Some of the commissioners may want to come back out. They may want to look at the site again. At the next meeting, we will have a second reading of these ordinances. And at that time, each side will be allowed 5 minutes to come up and make your argument. Don't want any new facts, can't accept new facts. But you will be able to come up and say, we think that the Planning Commission erred in their interpretation of the facts. So each side, I would suggest that the appellants, all you folks, would choose one of those who spoke to be your representative. You don't have an attorney here to represent you like Mr. Kamoff represents the other side, but I would suggest that you would have someone that you could kind of get together and say, this is what we want brought forward in our argument. Claude, have I missed anything?
I think you covered that, Judge,
And I'll get, the other thing is, many of you folks are sitting out here wondering, well, we filed an appeal, we showed up, why in the world can't we speak? We can't do that. We don't do that because we can only consider the record that occurred. You certainly are welcome to file an appeal. As a matter of fact, there were some people, I think, that spoke at the hearing. I believe Mr. Newton spoke. Doesn't live in that neighborhood now, but he spoke. Anyone in Owensboro could have filed an appeal or showed up at that meeting and spoke. But there are specific rules, and these are state rules. Kentucky Revised Statute 100. It pretty much controls everything that we do. The Planning Commission is appointed. County appoints 4 members, city appoints 5. City of Whitesville appoints 1. So they are friends, neighbors, and people that you know. You probably don't know some of them, but they all have various expertise, and that's why they are appointed. And those are the ones that start the process. They are advised by the hired staff. Mr. Howard is the fellow that runs that department. And they are advised, and their job is to advise based on the law. Based on the law. The board, though, can consider things other than the law if the applicant would provide testimony otherwise, then that board can consider that. So, if there is, Claude, if I haven't missed anything, I'm going to call Mr. Howard up to the stand.
as you mentioned earlier, just for a matter of record,
Yes.
to adopt or include in the record the Planning Commission's complete record, which include the video and the transcript.
Okay. And that's-
Plus, which that will also include the Planning Commission's report.
Okay, and that
We're
is
just,
done.
it's just
We-
a formality of doing it. yes.
Any objection to that, commissioners?
And if
Paul
you,
need to read the.
you want me to read.
I want you to read the ordinance, so Brian, I called you up prematurely, but read just,
I think what I'm going to do, Judge, there are 3 ordinances, but they are all the same. And
there
I
are
will
3
read.
ordinances because there are 3 parcels.
Correct, Judge. So we have 3 parcels, and they're each one, but each one of them will have the same findings. It's just a difference of size. The Metropolitan Planning Commission met in its regular session in Owensboro on August 11th, considered an application filed by Gary Boswell and Margaret Boswell for a zoning classification amendment from an R1A single-family residential to an R3MF multifamily residential for 3.336 acres at 5008 to 5120 Cambridge Drive. They also heard on the same day, same time, by the same persons, an application for a change in zoning classification from an R1A single-family residential to R3MF multifamily residential for a 5.068 acre tract at 5007 to 5123 Cambridge Drive and 5030 to 5114 Sturbridge Place. They also heard on the same day, same time, for the same application, the same zoning change, a 1.125 acre tract located at 1859, 1863, 1903, and 1907 Sturbridge Place. And whereas after hearing the evidence presented, the Owensboro Metropolitan Planning Commission made findings of fact and conclusions and recommended approval of the zoning classification amendment to an R3MF multifamily residential, and we have attached and included the copy of the transcript of that proceeding. Within the time allowed by law, either 35 or 36 aggrieved parties filed a request with the planning office for the fiscal court to hear that rezoning, and that's why we're here tonight. The official transcripts of those proceedings at that meeting, including the evidence, the findings of fact, the conclusions, and recommendations of the Metropolitan Planning Commission, have been filed and considered by fiscal court for each of those three applications. That the proceedings then before be it ordained by the fiscal court of the County of Daviess, Commonwealth of Kentucky, that proceedings before the August 11, 2022 meeting of the Owensboro Metropolitan Planning Commission relating to a zoning change of the property described and attached to each of the ordinances, including the findings of fact, the recommendations of the Planning Commission, are confirmed and approved, and the zoning classification of the property, which is described and attached and incorporated, is amended and changed so that the property would be zoned an R3MF multifamily residential, subject to the following findings of fact and condition. The property is located in an urban residential planning area where urban mid-density uses are appropriate in limited locations. The proposal is not a logical expansion of existing R3MF zoning, but the proposed use is residential in nature and will integrate well in the area. Since the property has not been developed and since it was platted in the mid-60s, the proposed infill development would offer a variety of housing types encouraged by the comprehensive plan. The property has sanitary service available, and the proposed use as duplexes conforms to the criteria of an urban residential development. Those ordinances would have become effective upon passage and completion. This is the first reading. There is no vote. That's just the ordinance and the appeal that is before the court.
Everything that the county attorney read is contained in that. That's the record, the transcript, maps, evidence, everything. So, Brian, would you come forward? Identify yourself, please.
My name is Brian. Is that on?
No.
All right.
Try it now. I don't hear him.
Maybe get.
Now? All
Now
right,
it's
there you
on.
go. All right. My name is Brian Howard. I am.
Go ahead and pick it up, Brian.
Pick it up. All right. My name is Brian Howard. I am
I like your suit.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's a nice color. I am the director of the Owensboro Metropolitan Planning Commission.
Okay.
What other information would you like?
Tell us, when was OMBC created and how was it created?
Okay, the Owensboro Metropolitan Planning Commission has been in existence since the early 1970s. I believe it was 1972. We were formed under a joint charter with the City of Owensboro, Daviess County, and the City of Whitesville. As you correctly pointed out, we have a 10-member commission. 5 members are appointed by the City Commission, 4 by a fiscal court, and 1 by the City of Whitesville.
What did we do prior to that? Do you recall?
Well,
don't tell me you're too young. to know.
That was before I was born, but it is my understanding, just having the records that exist within our office, the City of Owensboro had zoning well before that. There was some zoning in the county as well. There was a 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdiction that was in place around the City of Owensboro. So prior to that, zoning existed, but in 72 it was
not uniform.
Correct.
Which really affected all types of people, developers, contractors, I mean, if you don't have uniform rules and regulations throughout a county, and yeah, I would say, dare say, even throughout the state and the feds, it makes life difficult for everybody. And it's hard to understand.
Right.
It's hard to understand because everybody is getting a dose. Now, do all the counties around us have zoning?
No.
Okay. Some counties have zoning in cities only, and out in the county, it's a free-for-all.
Right. There's KRS encourages joint planning commissions, which is what we have. Henderson, Bowling Green, they all have joint planning commissions. There are some instances where there are counties that have zoning and no cities do, or cities have zoning and no counties.
Yeah, I think Northern Kentucky has a.
And they have a joint planning commission, which is the only one. But yeah, so there's a wide variety of zoning schemes across the state of Kentucky.
So we had an application, or an application was brought to you guys, and you looked at it. What are the things that you look at when somebody brings an application?
So the big thing that we look at for a rezoning is the comprehensive plan, and more specifically within that, the land use map.
Okay, just stop there.
Okay?
Tell me what the comprehensive plan is, when was it adopted, and what and where is that land use plan that you're talking about?
Okay, so the comprehensive plan is an overall guide and vision for the community. State law, KRS, requires that that document be reviewed every 5 years. The last one was adopted in 2018, so next year we will go through an update of the comp plan. It's a document that contains many sections. It covers public facilities, transportation, economic development, housing, land use, areas of special interest, which Daviess County includes floodplain management type information, since we have a lot of that. So there's a lot of information in there, along with schools and public facilities, hospitals, jails, things like that. So, but that is updated every 5 years. Like I said, we're due for one next year. When that document is updated, we rely on the various and sundry departments within the community to weigh in on those. We'll talk to the airport and have their updated plan incorporated into it, or the Riverport, or we'll talk to the city and county engineers and so on, just to make sure we have current information going into the comp plan.
Public have an opportunity to input?
Yeah, there's always at least one public comment, community type meeting, and then there is a public hearing at the Planning Commission as well. You ask within the comp plan, there's the land use map.
That's within, that's.
Correct. It's one of the sections of the comprehensive plan. So the land use map, which I have a copy of it, I can get it out if you want, but basically the entire county is split up into different plan areas. Within those plan areas, there are criteria to allow a potential of various zonings. So some communities, they call them a future land use map, and it may just say that future land use in this area is business, and really any future use is tied to business. Ours is a bit of a formula, but it does allow flexibility that within a certain plan area, you may be able to rezone to multifamily or professional office or commercial. So there's a lot of flexibility built into it. It's a unique one. There aren't a whole lot across the state that do what we do. Lexington does, or has had something similar. They do some performance zoning and stuff now, but
I think that the key is flexibility.
Right.
It's flexible. I know sometimes we get complaints from folks who say it's just a rigid document, it doesn't take into account anything, but it does take into account certain things.
it does. You can't account for everything in every scenario, but I believe it's very flexible in what it can
Commissioners,
allow.
I'm going to stop for just a second, and if you have a question as we go through this, just interrupt, and we'll have Brian answer those questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Brian, I don't know if you have this or not, but there's A, B, C, D, and E, which is the recommendation of the Planning Commission staff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that?
I do.
It seems to me like A and C I'll read it for the, A says it did not comply with the comprehensive plan. C says proposed use as duplexes conforms to the criteria for urban residential development. Those two statements seem to me to conflict with each other, but both of them are given as reasons that they gave to turn down the zoning. I believe.
Right. So within the comp plan, again, there are a variety of zonings that could be appropriate in any plan area. So there are criteria that exist. In this instance, there were four. Well, no, really three, I guess. So one is that that it be in compliance with the idea of urban residential development. And as you pointed out in item C, multifamily would comply with the idea or context of urban residential development.
In other words, it could be developed in an urban setting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I'll start at the beginning.
Yeah.
There are four of them. One, the first is that building and lot patterns should conform to the criteria for urban residential development. That's what we discussed. It meets that criteria. The second is that there are existing, expanded, or new sanitary sewer. And sanitary sewer is available to the property. It meets that criteria. So two of the four so far it's met. The next is a logical expansion. It says existing areas of urban mid-density residential uses may be expanded onto contiguous land. So this is where we as staff, when we're reviewing this application, we have an issue because there's not any R3MF multifamily residential zoning in the vicinity. So it's
So you
not
want it
contiguous.
adjacent to each other? Or at
The
least,
idea of being contiguous, a logical expansion would mean that zoning in either adjacent to or in very close proximity to. Again, we didn't, as staff, we did not find that there was any R3MF zoning in the immediate vicinity. And then the fourth criteria is that if it's a new location of R3MF zoning, that it be located on a major street. And we could not find or make a finding that this application is major street oriented because it's within a residential neighborhood
Inside,
with
yeah.
local roads. There are no major collectors, arterial roadways. So it met the criteria for two of the four. It did not meet the criteria for two of the four.
Two of the five, because the first was.
Is that it's not-
in compliance with.
Right,
Yeah.
but, yeah. So
okay, another question. Based on the way the rules are written right now, if this is rezoned to a multifamily, can there be fourplexes and eightplexes and those type things built in this, on these lots?
there could, yes. If the property is rezoned to R3MF, it would allow duplexes on up.
On up?
Yes.
You mean like,
In theory, if there was sufficient, you're talking development plans and review by utilities and everybody, but, if you had fire protection and all that and sufficient parking, yeah, you could have some type of an apartment building, in
Okay.
theory. Yeah.
okay, one last question, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's my understanding there are 36 people who have filled out an appeal, is that right?
35, I think, 35 or 36.
35 and 2, 36 and 1. There are three
Oh,
different,
okay, I got
there are three
you. Okay,
different
yeah.
ordinances or. ones-
36 individuals have filed an appeal on one of the three properties.
And 35 on the other
Yeah.
two.
Because I didn't compare all those different names, that's why I came up with 36. Okay, that's all I got at this point, Commissioner.
I have a question that when you talk about sewer capacity, just say if there were, I don't know, 30 duplexes or fourplexes or whatever versus single houses, is the sewer large enough to accommodate that much? Because when you take, just say if you took a duplex versus a fourplex or eightplex, you're looking at 8 households, well, basically, we'll say 2 bathrooms for each side. So each building could be 4 bathrooms or 8 or 10. Is that sewer capacity, or is the sewer, capacity, would it handle that, or we'd have to go back, RWA have to go back and increase
Commissioner, I think you're asking him a question outside of his expertise. I'm going to answer for you.
Okay.
That would be a question that would have to go to RWRA or the engineer to confirm. But I think what you were asking was, does the planning staff have a way of looking at that infrastructure to see if it has the capacity for more housing?
Yeah, you're correct. We would rely on, we don't govern or oversee water, sewer, or any of those. So we would rely on those entities to ensure that satisfactory, infrastructure is in place to support that. So, yeah, I don't want to speak for any other agency.
Well, I know that you'd have to look at the other agency, but I thought in your comprehensive plan, you'd just say, hey, this could be a possibility, and that would fit into the equation. That's my only question.
So, yeah, in theory, the comp plan would, it has the sewer information in there, but it doesn't go down to the level of individual parcels or even neighborhoods as far as sewer capacity would go.
Okay, thank you.
Typically, Brian, when you have a rezoning or a plat where you're going to do building, don't you have, if it's in the city engineer, or if it's in the county engineer would sign off on
Right.
on that plat?
So if we
Did
have
that happen here?
It did not. If you have a site plan or development plan, those are reviewed by the city or county engineer. The project engineer would coordinate with the utilities to make sure that they've had an opportunity to review and sign off if needed. In this instance, it's a bit of I don't know if catch-22 is the right term, but these are existing lots within a neighborhood, although the road wasn't completed, but they're existing lots within that neighborhood. So we, as staff, to this point, have not had a mechanism to require any type of additional plan submission.
So that's done when you have a site plan. When the site plan's approved, is that what you're saying?
When the site plan is reviewed, the engineer would certainly look at the plan, and then the various utilities could potentially look at it at that point as well.
Anything, Mike, or
No,
Commissioner,
no,
I'm
Judge.
sorry.
That's all right.
Anything?
No.
Commissioner Castleton, do you have any questions? So, KRS says that you will have these hearings, that each side will present their case, and then the planning commission will vote and make a decision.
Right.
If the folks are aggrieved and don't like the decision, then they appeal to the proper legislative body. Since this is outside the corporate limits of Owensboro or Whitesville, it's the Daviess County Fiscal Court.
Yes.
What happens if they don't like, either side doesn't like what we do?
If they're not pleased with the fiscal court's decision, then that could be appealed to circuit court.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioners, anything? Brian, did I fail to ask you anything that I should?
One thing I'll aad,
Yeah.
and I thought you were going there with your previous statement, but we do operate under this alternative zoning process within Owensboro and Daviess County. We've been doing that since 2007. So it allows an appeal of a zoning change. Prior to that, every single rezoning came to you guys or the City of Owensboro Commission or Whitesville, whatever was within their jurisdiction. This alternative process still follows the same mechanisms. An application is submitted. State law still requires that we put signs on the property, that we notify the adjoining property owners, that we publish a public hearing notice in the newspaper. We still follow all that stuff. None of that changes. It just says that once the rezoning is heard by the Planning Commission, if no one appeals it, it becomes final 21 days after. Before we went through this process of altering the way that it works based on the flexibility that KRS allows, the typical zoning process would take 88, 89 days to get through. Now most zoning changes get through in about 42 days. So for developers, for zoning cases where there was no opposition, it's allowed developers or whomever to, begin their project more quickly. But it does allow then for people to appeal just as what's happened here. You all still have the final say on the zoning change, and it still allows that.
Prior to this alternative process, I served on the city commission. Commissioner Castle, and you served on the city commission. Tonight, we went through 30 minutes of doing the county business. In the past, that might be an hour and a half. On the city commission, it might be 2 hours, because we would hear not appeals, but every zoning decision that was made, the legislative body would have to do it. But that's one of the good things about having zoning in your community. These folks, if there were no zoning, you wouldn't have a venue or a forum to be heard. And that's, people get mad about planning and zoning, but that's kind of one of those checks and balances. I'm glad you brought up the notices. I knew I had something on my, that I didn't ask, and then I want to talk about the comprehensive plan, and then we'll move on. KRS 100 requires certain notices. Go through that again.
Okay, right. So KRS Chapter 100 requires, and this takes place the week after an application is submitted. So there's a 3-week window. Application is submitted on a Thursday, 3 weeks before the Planning Commission meeting. So within that time, we don't have that set up so that we can delay a project or do whatever. There are administrative things we have to do based on state law within that time frame. So we send out letters, certified mail return and receipt requested to all adjoining property owners of the rezoning.
Did you get all those notes back?
We have the vast majority of them back. Almost with any rezoning, if you have any quantity of notices, there'll always be 1 or 2 that bounce back.
Okay.
So we notified all adjoining property owners. We publish
This is the adjacent property owners.
Yeah, state law.
Not the neighborhood.
That's right.
This is the ones who live in that perimeter. That have an address that you can send to. I'll get you.
It actually touches.
That it actually touches.
Yeah, KRS requires that all adjoining property owners, that includes those across the public right-of-way, across a railroad right-of-way, an alley, whatever, that are adjoining property owners be notified. So we do that. We send a public hearing notice ad to the paper that is run on the Friday of that week, and then we post signs on the property as well. And those are based on KRS requirements.
So if this is not a question and answer from the audience, this is our questioning. So if you post that notice on the property that's being rezoned, and you'll post it all the way around, right? That's okay. Those doors get me too. Okay. All right, so you posted notices.
Correct.
What happens if they get blown down or torn down, or just somebody sees it and they're madder than hell and they just rip it up?
Yeah, if somebody calls and said one of the signs is gone, we'll go back out and repost it. We certainly don't have staff capabilities to go look every day at signs, but if somebody calls and says the sign's down, we always go repost it.
So you do the best to comply, but if something happens and it's not there, then, I mean, you're not going to go, and Claude, I assume KRS doesn't require them to check those signs every day.
No,
We would
Judge,
hope
it's-
that if a sign was down, the neighborhood would say, hey, a sign is down, and.
Right.
Yeah.
Just required to provide reasonable notice,
Yeah. So-
as required by statute.
Okay, so you've done that, you have return receipt, you do a return receipt requested, which means that you have a copy of either it got delivered or was undeliverable.
Correct.
Which is satisfies KRS 100. Okay. Let's go back just quickly to and Claude, you might chime in. So if it doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan, to me, that seems like it'd be a fatal error, and there are lots of things that don't comply with the comprehensive plan. Is there an alternative? Is it flexible enough to do a workaround?
Yeah, there are 3 ways that the Planning Commission can make findings of fact for a rezoning. The first is that it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. 2, the second would be that there have been major changes of a social or economic nature within the vicinity that were not anticipated within the comprehensive plan.
Within the vicinity?
Right.
Is that the word?
Yeah, within that area, that there have been major changes.
How about within Owensboro or within Daviess County?
That would be a judgment call, certainly. We did have, when the hospital, I'll give an example. When the hospital located where they went.
Right.
It was in the middle between a comp plan update. It wasn't anticipated that it would go in that location. And then we had some rezoning requests for medical office and other things in the vicinity. Well, it wasn't in compliance with the comprehensive plan. However, the fact that the hospital located there created this change within the vicinity.
Okay.
Then the third criteria, or the third way, would be that findings are made that the proposed zoning is more appropriate than the existing zoning.
Okay. Give me an example.
Okay, so within the city, you'll find this sometimes. The railroad track that runs through town, a lot of the properties adjacent to it were zoned industrial back in the day. I think the thought was at the time that if that area were to redevelop, it would be industrial in nature due to the proximity to the railroad tracks. However, there have been houses on the lots there since 1902 or whatever, and let's say they want to do something and their property zoned industrial, they can request that zoning be changed. And even though it's zoned industrial, it may still be an industrial plan area, but the proposed zoning is more appropriate than the existing zoning in the fact that there's been a residence on that property for 100 years.
So that might explain why you have a grocery store on Graham Lane, which is non-conforming, but it's always been that before zoning ever existed. You're not going to toss them out on their ear. They're non-conforming. If the wind came along and blew it down there and it changed hands, that lot, probably somebody wouldn't be able to build a grocery store back.
If they redo it within the same footprint, the same type use, within 18 months, they could.
Within 18 months?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So, Claude, do you agree with what he told us there?
I do, Judge.
Okay. So, remember we talked about there wasn't a Metropolitan Zoning Commission until about 72. What did they do prior to 72?
I'll be honest and tell you, I don't know exactly. I don't know how zonings were handled in the county. I know zoning's been in place within the city since at least the late 40s. I don't know what the county did.
I guess what I'm trying to look at, if it wasn't, then how do we, down Frederica Street, there are homes upon homes that are on commercially zoned property.
Mm-hmm.
So we just had a hearing, the city had an appeal down on 3rd Street about a residence that they were going to put a tiki bar next to. The tiki bar was commercial, but that residence was on a commercial piece of property.
It was actually zoned industrial, right?
Or industrial
But
property.
it'd been a residence
So
forever.
we have lots of things that occurred prior to zoning and the comprehensive plan that probably would not have been looked at today except under those special circumstances if they could meet it.
That's a fair statement,
Okay.
yes.
All right, Commissioners, we've warned Brian out. He'd like to sit down for.
Leave it on or turn it off?
I'm sorry, leave it on. Applicant, Mr. Kamoff, do you want to come up here, or do you want Mr. Boswell to come up here and answer a few questions?
Let me give just a short statement.
Nope, you can do that next week, or 2 weeks from now, because
Okay.
we're not allowing anybody to do that.
Okay.
You'll get the 5 minutes like everybody else. Commissioners, I'll let you guys start this. Any of you have any questions of the applicant?
Also, Mr. Boswell's here too. Some of
Yeah.
these questions that you
Sure.
talked about,
No,
he's
that's-
going to have.
That's fine. If we ask a question and Mr. Boswell will be the
Fine.
proper person, then you can call him up. Commissioners, nothing? None right now. You pretty much, I guess, Mr. Kamoff or Mr. Boswell, whichever, there was, in the hearing, there were some statements made about multifamily existing in that neighborhood. And it was pointed out I don't see him here tonight. I think Mr. Smithers, the garage that was behind Mr. Smithers' house, I think it was pointed out, probably the store, implying that was, I don't know what that implication was. There was a mobile home there. Are there?
Well, in other words, in the, and I use vicinity because that's the word that planning
No, but
staff.
those were the three examples that were given.
Right, and then there,
Those were the three examples that were given as existing within that neighborhood. And then you talked about the vicinity, but those three, I remember very clearly
That's right.
from reading it, the implication was that there was an occupied apartment behind Mr. Smithers.
I don't know whether it is or not.
Well, Mr. Boswell, if you want to come up, but I think Mr. Boswell implied that was there. I even have the evidence that was submitted regarding that.
Your Honor, Court, Member Gary Boswell.
First of all, don't call us, I'm not your honor,
Okay.
so.
Judge.
Judge is fine, yeah.
You're correct. There was indications by at least one neighbor that there was multifamily use going on at that particular residence, and that was incorrect.
So you didn't observe it yourself, but you talked about, you gave that as evidence.
I will say that there were indications by the property owner that implied to me that there was someone living in that residence, which turned out to be incorrect based on his own statements.
Okay.
I think the statements that primarily were used regarding duplexes were the ones that were in the vicinity.
I'm going to talk to.
And could I clarify?
Yeah, if you want to talk about those, so.
Well, I would just like to clarify one thing. Well, this is really important. I
Okay.
think it's what some of the questions were regarding the type of structures that will be built on this property. I'm willing to agree in the record there will never be anything built greater than duplexes on these
Okay,
lots.
that's fine. Mr. Kamoff, do you want to come back up? Hold on just a second. Yeah, Mr. Kamoff?
Yes, sir.
Are there some of you that can't hear what's being said? If there is, we'll try to get them to speak up. And okay, so you can't hear?
No, can you repeat what he said?
I will paraphrase if I say it wrong. He is willing to go on record and say there will be nothing built other than duplexes. He wouldn't build fourplexes, eightplexes, or anything like that. I think that was correct. Mr. Boswell shaking his head, yes. So, okay. And I'm sorry, if you don't hear something, raise your hand and I'll try to get it repeated for you. Mr. Kamoff, let's go now to the ones that you talked about that are in the vicinity.
Okay, the vicinity there, I think it's East Graham Lane, there are 5 duplexes. It's in the vicinity, and I use the word vicinity because that's the word that the planning staff uses to describe whether there's any multifamily in the area.
So is the vicinity?
There are many non-conforming uses.
Yeah. Is vicinity defined in KRS 100?
Please?
Is vicinity defined in KRS 100, or is that just a?
I used it specifically because that's what the planning and zoning.
Brian, is vicinity defined in KRS 100? That's not an answer. All right. I just wonder because, look, sometimes you wonder why somebody would say something or talk about something that's 3 miles away from that neighborhood. Or somebody, you can say, well, in the vicinity of the neighborhood, when the neighborhood has nothing in it, and the implication is, well, yeah, it still complies, and I was just trying to see, where are those, how far from the neighborhood?
They're on the corner, Graham Lane East, I think.
How far?
I can't.
Hold on.
I just used the vicinity
Yeah, okay.
because when the planning staff mentioned that there were no multifamily in the area, they were talking about that new subdivision that was directly across from the park. It's down, it's a brand new one, and they were talking about that vicinity. So. And this Graham Lane East is pretty close to that.
Do you know, I'm trying to think of that yeah, I know the one you're talking about. It's on Reed Road. The entrance is.
That's right.
Is on Reed Road. Okay, there are 4 or 5 duplexes at the entrance of Graham Lane East. They've been there.
That's correct.
They've been there forever. When I was a young man, I worked in those, so they've been there.
Can't tell them.
And I'm a younger man than you are, so they've been there for a pretty long time.
You can't hardly tell there.
Well, you just count the driveways.
Yeah.
That's how you know whether it's a duplex or
Right.
not. So you count the driveways. So I think I'm sitting here, I'm trying to be careful and not introduce stuff that wasn't in that record and talk about it. Claude, are you listening to me so you can tell me to shut up?
I am and I will.
Yes, I know you will.
I doubt if he'll do that.
So in the record, and I know you have your engineer here. In the record, your engineer, I think, he led me to believe when I reviewed it. I think he led Commissioner Caslin to believe when he reviewed it. As a matter of fact, anybody that looks at it, that our county engineer had reviewed the plans.
I don't know anything about it.
Okay, let's bring your engineer up. I guess directly, I'll just, hello, and you are?
I am Jason Baker with Bryant Engineering.
Okay. When I reviewed it, there was a conversation about the county engineer had looked at it, was okay with it. There was a conversation about the county fire chief had looked at it and was okay with it. And we're talking about multifamily rezoning. Did you take a multifamily rezoning plan and ask the county engineer about it or the fire chief?
The context that the question was in was relative to design plans, drainage, streets, and utilities. Those conversations were had with the county engineer.
About multifamily?
No, it had nothing to do, no, there was never any discussion about multifamily.
Okay,
no.
so you did talk to him when the proposal was to build single-family homes?
Well, just to be crystal clear.
Okay.
I represented my colleague who had the conversation with Mr.
Oh, Lord,
Brasher.
Claude, this is secondhand information. Can we even believe
which
anything?
I said in the record, I believe.
He doesn't know how I dislike engineers to begin with.
Which normally, he was just out on vacation, so.
Okay, well, I know what you said, but you didn't say my colleague said this.
I did.
I don't recall it. And I recall pretty well, but just for the record, Mr. Brasher, did you ever review anything regarding multifamily?
I did not.
Okay. And in a conversation with the chief,
Yes.
he never reviewed anything regarding multifamily, which comes, now I do understand, and Mr. Howard and I had a conversation prior to this rezoning about the fact that it was going to be grandfathered in because it had been platted. And because of that, there were going to be no requirements to bring it up to current subdivision specs. Is that correct, Brian? And Brian's shaking his head, yes, that was correct. But then we've changed to multifamily. The intent originally, Mr. Boswell, I need to ask you, because you're the one that's doing the project. Come on up for just a second.
Well, I just want to say, it was not my intent to misrepresent any of that.
It doesn't matter what your intent was. What matters is what happened. And that's why we got it clarified.
Okay,
Mr. Brasher called you and said, why are you throwing me under the bus? And
Yeah.
you guys worked
Yeah, we
it
had a
out.
conversation,
Yeah.
yes.
So Gary, I'm sorry, Mr. Boswell, come up. The original intent was single family, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It just depends. What happened here, I'd only had that property about a week.
Sure.
And the messenger inquirer called me up and started asking questions. Is that going to be part of the park? What's that going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, these lots were plotted and recorded in 1961.
Okay.
And there's several things I can do, but at that particular time, I was considering single.
Okay, so that's it.
Yes, sir.
You were considering single-family residential, and Brian, that originally, I think, was all the conversations that were had with your office, single-family residential. Mark, all the conversations with you, single-family residential,
Correct.
until when did you find about multifamily?
The morning after the rezoning.
Okay. And that's fine. I mean, I'm trying to get it clear in my mind as to, and you know, it's in the record because there was conversations from folks who attended that you had told them, and I understand you didn't talk to all of them, and people sometimes hear what they want to hear. I mean, I hear what I want to hear sometimes. That's what my wife says.
Yes, sir.
So, that's it. Go ahead.
Okay, can I just add one thing?
Okay.
When I purchased that property, it was my understanding at that. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's on, just pick it, pull it out,
Yes,
out,
sir.
pull it
Yes, sir.
it out. No, take it out and hold it, there you go.
Yes, sir.
Now we're good.
Okay, when I purchased that property, at that particular time, because the lots were plotted and rezoned and recorded in 1961, I assumed I would be able to do whatever was allowed in 1961. Just for example, there are multiple duplexes that were built prior to the comprehensive plan, to the planning and zoning being put together, and prior to the comprehensive plan all over town. I won't introduce any new information.
You don't have to.
Yes.
There was information introduced by Mr. Kamoff talking about areas where,
Yes,
like
sir.
the Lansdowne
Yes,
was one of them. I never can remember the one out past Stone Creek or Stonegate. Countryside. But there is a difference. Those were developed plats anticipating and with those lots showing multifamily from day one when they came in. So in that case, those people that bought the single-family houses knew there would be multifamily there. That's the difference. And I, as much as I think the argument went back and forth, if I went across the street and rehabbed a building that was built in 1900, it doesn't matter that it was built in 1900, I have to bring it up to current code. I have to meet current codes. But I'm okay with their decision. That's my paid staff. I get to fire him if I don't like him. So I was okay, but then this changed to multifamily. So we've changed what this thing has been since 1963. So I think, I can't speak for these folks, but what I heard the folks who opposed that was, we didn't have an opportunity to decide. When we moved in, it was all single family. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think that's what I heard them say. So,
Your Honor.
could I ask, it may be you or it could be your engineer. I need to ask about the streets and the traffic.
I would like to add on about the streets, though.
Okay.
Is that one thing that I voluntarily did? I volunteered to put a hydrant and replace a large section of that water line. It wasn't required, has already been talked about.
So you're going to go out into the neighborhood and replace it?
No, so there's already an existing water line, see, in the undeveloped road section.
There are no roads or streets in there. Are you saying
No, there's
they
a section that's
put it
not
through?
developed, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
And there's already a 4-inch water line in place, but we volunteered to agree to replace that with a 6-inch line and to add a water hydrant.
Okay, thank you. I hate that thing. How much did we pay for this? Yeah. Well, I think we paid enough. We just didn't get a.
So my evaluation relative to this whole thing.
I haven't asked you a question.
I'm sorry.
So if we take out a 4-inch line and replace it with a 6, but it's only fed by a 4, Does that provide sufficient flow for fire protection? Did you check with our fire chief, or?
It's my understanding, the evaluation that we did went to the various utilities and presented what's there. And what was arrived at was we need to put a hydrant in, and we could tie into the existing sewers, and the roads could be built to plans that were from previous.
Okay. No curbs, no gutters.
It's all concrete.
Hold on a minute.
Went to mute.
Sorry.
God, I hate that thing. Do we have one over there that works? Okay, so no curbs, no gutters, narrow streets, I'm assuming ditches down no drainage, stormwater drainage?
Yes, and that, again, we solicited that information from the parties.
Okay. When did you give them that? Was that prior to deciding to go multifamily?
It was.
So
It was, yes.
wasn't, at that time, they thought it was 36 single-family, and then you made a change or decision to go to multifamily? Okay.
I didn't make the decision, but yes,
No,
that decision was made, yes.
I understand. Well, I'm not saying you're implying that now, so, okay. That's fair enough. Just, you're not a traffic engineer, are you?
I am not a traffic engineer, no, sir.
Have you been out in that neighborhood?
Certainly. I grew up here, so I'm familiar with the area.
I heard the development will be similar to the Hobo Woods. What's the name of that
Ballard Point's the other one.
Ballard?
Howard.
Mallard Point.
Like a duck.
So
Mallard.
thanks. So the duplexes.
The types of buildings that are
Yeah, types
proposed
of
there.
buildings. You weren't implying, I love that word, that was another development like what you were doing. You were just showing that as the types of very nice-looking duplexes.
The types of buildings, and as I indicated in the record, there's a distinction between the two because these are on single-family lots where like Mallard Point is one big development, one big lot.
Mallard Point is a
Yeah.
planned development where they have no lots. As a matter of fact, to my understanding, the city hadn't taken those streets in yet.
Yeah, it's all private. Yeah,
It's all private,
Yes,
and the
sir.
streets, I think, were even designated as parking lots.
Yeah, there's
that's
parking
pretty
right off
dumb,
of them,
isn't
yeah.
it? Yeah.
So effectively, it's a linear parking lot, or,
Yeah.
it's a,
Yeah, okay, so that's not what's going out there, it's not planned
Correct.
development, but those are the types of buildings that you plan, and they look nice.
Yeah.
They look nice. So you've been out in the neighborhood, were cars parked on both sides of that street, some of those streets? I guess
times
my
I've been in
question
there,
is,
I
in your
really haven't seen a lot of cars parked on the
as an
street.
engineer, in your opinion as an engineer, how easy is it would it be for a fire truck or an ambulance to get up and down those streets?
I mean, it's a typical neighborhood built in that time frame, I guess. I think what's being proposed has, driveways and garages, and the intent is, by ordinance that you would have 2 spaces per unit. So there shouldn't be a need for parking on the street.
Is there a way to guarantee that?
I don't know how you would guarantee that. No, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, while we got this engineer up here, do you have any questions? I treat you better than I treat our engineer, don't I, Mark?
And I thank you. And I thank you for that.
Yes, I know. Yes, sir. Come up. We will, you go ahead, but you save your arguments for
Judge, I would
2
agree
weeks.
that parking could be a situational problem for any development because of, people driving to
Yes.
places. And one thing that I intend to do, and I think I would be allowed to do this, is not to allow any long-term parking on the streets for my development. So if I visit you, you would be able to park if you
I
had.
think you couldn't do it, we could do it by ordinance if that was required. You couldn't keep them from doing
I
it.
think that could be a condition.
Yeah, I understand. We could put conditions, but.
And I would be okay with that.
Yeah, okay. Commissioners, anything else?
Are we going to get to hear from the three
Yeah,
individuals?
I'm getting ready to ask them. Do you have questions for them?
No, I just wanted to make sure they're up there.
Okay, let's see, my three people who attended and spoke. Three people who attended and spoke. Yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and yes, sir. Okay, now understand, we want to be very careful. We're going to ask you questions. You answer the questions. Let's not get into a long diatribe about all those other, you will get that opportunity 2 weeks from now, and you'll be accorded the same amount of time that this side, okay? So commissioners? Yes. You can't go if I can't go. All right, get out. I think, anybody have a question of our engineer? Okay. So let me look and see who the lucky person is. Oh, go it, Jenny. Charlie, did I throw away that sign-in sheet? Ma'am, you come on, identify yourself for us and tell us where you live.
You hand it over.
Go ahead and pick up that microphone.
I got it.
Is it on?
You're Miss Davis,
Yes.
right?
Nope,
No?
I'm Miss Baldwin.
You're who?
Baldwin,
Miss
Gail.
Baldwin. Well, you know, it looked like you were next to, oh, I see why.
What?
Somebody didn't start in a proper line. Just like me, it colored outside the lines, never could color right. All right.
Gail Baldwin, 5125 Sturbridge Place.
Okay, how long have you
Down.
lived out there, Miss Baldwin?
15 years.
Okay, you aware of any multifamily that's in that neighborhood?
Nope. I know what he's saying about that's over there off of,
So you are aware of
not till they brought it up.
yeah, it's Mr. Camo made that statement. If you weren't looking for it,
You couldn't
wouldn't
find
see
it.
it. It's pretty well camouflaged.
Am I
So-
allowed to make a statement?
No,
Okay,
not today.
Thank you. No.
So out by the store, what's the name of that road? I'm sorry,
Larry's.
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 Graham Lane.
one person. What's
Larry's.
I'm sorry.
Larry's.
Larry's store, but I'm looking for the name of the street.
It's Graham and Bethel.
Bethel. So you come out Bethel, you hit Graham, you turn left. You go across the creek, and you actually have the mobile home park that's on the far side,
Yes.
I'm not gonna do that. And then you go past the mobile home park and you get to Graham Lane East.
Yes.
And the 4, 5 apartments or duplexes are there. Brian, I'm gonna shake your head, yes or no. Typically, this is typical. Well, no, that's a dumb question. How far would you think that is, that distance?
Far enough that it's not in my neighborhood.
Okay, 2 blocks, 5 blocks?
0.8 miles.
I'm sorry, point.
0.8 miles.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. 0.8 miles, so it's a pretty good hike to get from. Now, that's not actually quite correct because the edge of the neighborhood would be closer. So it probably 0.6 miles if I had to guess, but that's a pretty good hike. I can't remember, one of the folks questioned about drainage and but that wasn't you.
No.
I don't think. And Mark left. Actually, I think, Brian, if we looked at that map, and I've got the map and the floodplain and the floodway, and I don't believe any of that property is in the floodplain or floodway, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. If you look at it, it's not. Now, there may be a little bit on that Thrusten side, just a little encroachment out of the park. There may be a little encroachment, but I don't think much of it. And certainly, if well, you guys probably didn't get 7 inches in 2 hours Labor Day weekend like the
No,
west
but
side did.
If it rains hard,
Yeah.
yeah, you know it.
The streets of flood or the ditches, you've got roadside ditches in front. Yeah, most of them do.
It's, some of them do, some of them don't.
Okay, so the some that don't fill them in, they shouldn't have, and they ought to be opened back up. Or you've got tile. Because as I said, the meanest woman in Davis County is Judy Knight, and she lives up the street, and I've gotten on my hands and knees and cleaned leaves out for her. So I think everybody, and I think you were one of the ones that talked about the character of the neighborhood, and that it was residential, and now it's going to be changed. I mean, aren't neighborhoods like that? Aren't they supposed to be? Aren't you supposed to, nowadays, mixed use is,
I didn't buy mixed use, though.
I'm sorry.
I did not buy
Okay.
mixed use.
Fair point.
I bought a single, actually, most of the
Okay.
people know it. We bought an acre, and we poured a foundation, put the block up, and we set a modular on it.
Okay. So where are you at? Are you down next to Mr. Smithers?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I wondered, that's a nice modular home.
Thank you.
Okay.
We try.
A big lot,
It's an
more
acre.
than, probably 3 lots, maybe?
I don't know. I know it's an acre. I don't know what size you guys do lots down there.
Somebody made mention, and Charlie, quit writing. Somebody made mention about there being a restriction on mobile homes in that neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
But I was thinking that you guys researched the deed and there were no deed restrictions. So, I mean, that's actual, we can check that, but back then I would be surprised that there was. It kind of surprised me because mobile homes were not as popular then as they are now. But
Depends on whether you guys are taxing me or I'm borrowing money on it, whether it's a mobile.
no, I'm not talking about yours is a modular home. That's not defined. It's on a foundation, wheels are gone, no tongue. But I'm talking about the other mobile home that was down on Bethel or near Bethel.
There was one before when I moved in, sorry. Okay. There was one before that was on that corner. And it was all growed up around it when I moved in.
Yeah.
And I think the gentleman passed away or something.
Okay.
And the people that are there now with that
Mobile
home are supposed to be related to the guy that passed away, and it was
Okay.
kind of a hand-me-down.
Okay. But
Sort of a thing.
the point, now somebody, I think, when we looked at it, said that may actually be not associated with Greenbrier, that it may be with another development.
Oh, okay.
But the simple fact is, all of that is in that neighborhood development. Any questions? Any questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Okay.
Can
I suggest.
I ask just one question?
Do you have a question?
Yes, just one.
One question.
Did anybody do a traffic study?
It's not required.
That-
140 units. 140 units is the point when you're, I think it's 140, is the point where it would be required to have a traffic study. Now, you might say, well, there's 200 and some odd single-family homes, and they're going to add more, so they ought to be required. That's not what it says. If you're going to do a development and it has more than 140, and I can guarantee you that's what it said, because we had a hearing on a Daniels Lane and Hayden Road appeal back 2 years ago. So there would be no requirement for it.
Okay.
Okay? And it's simple as this. You don't do anything that you don't have to because it costs money. So, and we don't make the rules. Okay. That's fine.
Now, when we have the next hearing, we can
Yes.
ask questions? Okay.
Next hearing, the appellant side, and really you three or whomever spoke at the OMPC hearing will be allowed 5 minutes. Now, it may be that the three of you want to take a minute and a half or a minute and 33.3 seconds each, or it may be that you want to appoint a single spokesman. That's fine.
Will
And
that
that's
be
why I
you?
said I would get together really with the appellants, all of those who filed an appeal but didn't speak, aren't on the record, so we can't take testimony from him under this scenario, that you maybe get together and pick one of you three or one of the seven who spoke and have them represent, because I'm sure Mr. Kamoff will be representing Mr. Boswell. Or he may split. He may allow Mr. Boswell to just, hey, come up and tell us your side and why you think we could find.
Will we be notified by letter like we were for this one?
No.
How will we know when it is? And
It will be the first meeting in October at 5 p.m.
October 6th at 5 p.m.
October 6th at 5 p.m., right here. Right.
all right, thank you.
And I'm sure that it'll be in the Times and the Messenger and on Facebook.
Nobody takes
and-
the paper.
Well, nobody does, and that's what makes it difficult. How do we notify people? How, it's funny to me, it is funny to me that some of the people who spoke weren't from the neighborhood, but they knew about it. Now, I suspect one of them probably has relatives in the neighborhood. But, where do you stop?
Yeah.
Where do you stop? And we stop where the law tells us we can stop. And that's why, again, and I don't know, there was a lady that came here, and this is just an aside, after she had filed an appeal. And she wanted to talk about how she felt and how we don't base it on how you feel. I'm sorry, we base it on fact and how that fact is applied to the law. Whether it supports what's, the applicant wants to do, or does it not support it? So we've got to base it on fact. Doesn't matter how we feel. Doesn't matter if somebody's out there throwing rotten tomatoes at us. We understand it's emotional, and to answer somebody's question that I'm sure, how would you feel to have that in your backyard? Wouldn't like it. Wouldn't like it. That's why my lake backs up to, or my yard backs up to a lake.
Well, mine backed up to the woods.
I understand. I understand.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Baird, I think, is the next one. You want to come up and we'll see if the commissioners have any questions for you? Mr. Baird? Well, we
have to put it on the record.
Yeah, we have to put it on the record, so. The commissioners, I'll let you, anybody have any questions? Yes, Mr. Beard, or B-E-A-R-D?
Yes, sir.
Is that it? Okay. Mr. Beard, were you 5017 Sturbridge?
Mm-hmm, that's
Okay.
correct.
Did somebody holler? Okay. And you did speak at the last meeting?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How long have you lived out there?
I grew up out there,
Okay.
basically my whole life. I lived on Grandview for a while and then moved back home and took care of my
Moved
mother.
back in there. Were you aware of the multifamily up the road?
You mean on Graham Lane East?
East?
Yeah.
Okay. So you could see them when you'd pass by there. I know there was questions about infrastructure. I think you had asked about, does the infrastructure support or would it support? I think that's what your question was.
That was probably one of them.
Yeah, there were a couple.
I mean, you got two cars on the road, fire truck can get by, if that's what you wanted to know earlier.
It can or cannot?
They can.
Okay, so they can. School buses don't have any trouble going up and down the street?
It's tight when they got them big trucks, but I
Yeah.
mean, can't tell people what to have. But
I
they can
think
get
if a
by.
fire truck could, then a school bus should be able to.
I mean, they come down quite a few.
Okay, over on Sturbridge where you live, does it flood when it rains pretty good?
It gets across the road, but not about halfway in my house.
Okay.
It gets across the road.
Does it
but
get out pretty quick?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's not
reasonable.
there for 2 or 3 days? We've got
No.
one Windcrest on the west side.
No,
I was there
it's-
3
it's-
days after that big
it goes
rain.
down pretty
It was
quick
still
now.
flooded. Do you have any water pressure problems?
No.
So good water pressure. Sewer, I'm assuming that was a godsend when they came out and put it in? Well, I know it costs you an arm and leg and you're still
Sure.
paying, but septic systems, I can tell you.
It's a godsend. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, all
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So it was good.
So the infrastructure right now that's serving the neighborhood seems to be serving it pretty well.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen a fire hydrant in that neighborhood?
Yeah,
Anybody?
middle of the block.
Middle block. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
the same on every block?
There's one up at the middle of the block, and then you go where the big drain thing is, and you go to the other side. I think there's one
Okay.
over on Cambridge, same
Okay.
place.
I guess I'll just, we'll talk in terms of, I would suggest that you get together with the rest of them and come up with an argument why you think, and the argument is, why do you think that the Planning Commission erred? That the Planning Commission should have listened to planning staff and denied it? Why you think that the findings of fact that the Planning Commission used is wrong? Or if it's right, you certainly don't want to make that argument. But that's what we're looking for, will be that closing statement by each side. Don't have to do it, but I think everybody needs a forum or a platform, and that's, again, as I said, we could have just made I think we could have just reviewed the record and made our own decision without having anybody here.
That's one of the options, yes,
That would be
Judge.
one of the options, but that leaves a terrible taste in the public's mouth.
Well, that would have left a bad taste in mine. but-
I understand. I think that people should have, and again, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but that's why zoning in a community is valuable. I can tell you that across the line, when we had a coal mine rezoning at Pleasant Ridge, this room was packed, plus I had overflow downstairs. There was another section of property just across in Ohio County. Those people had no voice. They had no option. By folks being able to come like you, then we were able to put some restrictions or conditions on the rezoning. Again, you've heard the spiel, Brian. That's why it's good to have zoning, because it's really standing up for the community as a whole, not just individuals. So, all right, I appreciate your comment, and I've got one more, I think, Mr. Newton. Mr. Baker, I see where you put down Nenny Bell Loop. I think you said Old Highway 144 and then stopped and put the correct one in. Yeah. Did we just pave that road? Well, maybe it's on. Who? We renamed it. I think it's on the list to be repaved. I think it's on the list to be repaved. Mr. Newton, where do you live?
Well, I live at 922 Cedar Street.
Okay.
My mother lives in the house in the very corner opposite, I believe, where you live.
Okay.
That's where I grew up.
Okay. I might ask, because I think you addressed it, there was a lot made about all that stuff that went on back there in the woods, and I think a lot of people addressed it and said,
Oh, yeah, there were supposedly hobos, homeless, and drug dealers running around the woods.
yeah,
That's a gross misrepresentation of the area, because there has never been a homeless encampment. There has been a lot of kids out there with clubhouses.
yeah. I may have been one of them when I lived in Threwston.
I'm sure you were probably out there by the time I was hanging out.
That's probably the case. Your mom still lives there?
Yes.
She's
been in that neighborhood since '63.
So she was one of the-
Cambridge up in the front of it.
Okay, So
My
she
dad
was-
bought that property where the pool is off the courthouse lawn right here.
Okay,
It went bankrupt.
yeah.
Same reason this property stayed derelict forever, because it was tied up in a trust.
Okay. I think you had talked a little bit about traffic up down those streets and how narrow, I mean.
There's two ways into that neighborhood.
Okay.
And he's only showing, in the picture he showed at the planning meeting, it's only half the neighborhood.
Okay.
The other half is not even shown.
Well, he didn't have to show it because the other half is up on the other end with
But he
its
didn't
own.
have to notify anybody else,
Nope.
just the people that touch that
Well,
property.
wait a second, we're asking the questions. We're asking the questions.
Okay.
Just once again, though, to confirm what Brian said, the notice went to contiguous or adjacent, only people who touch the property that was, and I can tell you, I guarantee you, in the 12 years I've been here, they do an excellent job of doing it. Now, we did run into a snafu, didn't we, Brian? For the first time ever, we didn't have phone numbers or addresses to contact the people who filed an appeal. So what are you doing to your forms now? We've already, yeah, so, but we were able, we did, Sherry, I started to call you Shirley. Sherry did an excellent job. She could go to PVA and find most of you. And then I don't want to tell them how you found the rest of them, but it had to do with jail records. So your mom's not here,
No, she couldn't make it.
and you're representing her.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume that you would tell me that your mother was opposed to it, because I think that's what I
Oh,
heard you say.
absolutely. Would you like somebody parking 36 rental properties around your house?
Well, I think I addressed that earlier.
She puts up enough with Yellow Creek Park and the ROM
Yeah,
in
okay,
her back door, and I don't know what this is gonna do to her.
okay. Commissioners, questions? Thank you, appreciate it. I would again recommend you get together with those who spoke, and the fact that you had 4 of the people that spoke not here doesn't mean they can't come and speak at the next meeting, because they are part of the record. Their testimony is part of the record. Claude, tell me, have I missed anything that I should have done?
The only thing left, Judge, is to notify everyone of the next meeting, which
Once-
we've done a
once
couple
again-
of times, but
Once again, October 6th, 5 o'clock, here in this building. And at that time, we will have a second reading. We will have a vote. Actually, we'll have a second reading, and then I will invite each side to come up and give us your best argument as to why you think, on one side, why you think that the Planning Commission was correct, on the other side, why you think the Planning Commission was wrong. Okay? All right. Commissioners, do you have any comments, questions? Hearing none, since there's no other business be brought before Daviess County Fiscal Court without exception, we're adjourned.